politico administration. Yes, seal making technology or seal making is one of the major professions of Indus Valley Civilization, which I'll be going to speak as part of Indus art. Next I have something that is politico administrative system. Politico administrative system, one of the I won't say one of the important topics of IVC, but we found questions in general studies, prelims, APPSC, TGPSC, name of the what we call a scholar and what kind of nature of the government will propose. For example, political administration, political say institutions and governing institutions, we don't have any kind of clarity. When I say who governed Indus Valley Civilization, number one. Number two, what kind of administration we found in Indus Valley Civilization, we don't have clarity. Thereby, we were forced to depend on hypotheses. Obviously, during excavations, we found XYZ materials. Based on these materials, scholars have come with hypotheses, right? So, mali hypothesis lo bhanga oka line raskondi. Theocratic state, which is on board. Theocratic. In Telugu we call it Matacharyula Palana antam. Theocratic state. Oka chinna ifan తీసుకోండి. D.D. Koshambi. D.D. Koshambi. It's the name of the scholar from Karnataka. D.D. Koshambi. Theocratic state. Can anyone, what is this theocratic state? Can we call India as a theocratic state? Priestly class rule. Theocratic state can also be called as priestly class rule. Can we call India as a theocratic state? No. Now question is, what does it mean theocratic state? Based on? Good. So if a state governs on the basis of religion, religious books, religious heads, we call such kind of state as theocratic state. మతాచార్యుల పాలన అంటే మన ప్రభుత్వాన్ని మతాచార్యులు, మతాధిపతులు డామినేట్ చేస్తున్నారు. అలాంటి స్టేట్ని ఏమంటామంటే థియోక్రటిక్ స్టేట్ అంటాం. కెన్ వి కాల్ పాకిస్తాన్ యాజ్ ఎ థియోక్రటిక్ స్టేట్? కెన్ వి కాల్ బంగ్లాదేశ్ యాజ్ ఎ థియోక్రటిక్ స్టేట్? You can't call Pakistan as a theocratic state. How we have constitution based for Indian administration. Pakistan also has its own constitution. When it comes to, yes, you can call Bangladesh as a theocratic state because whenever you read newspapers, you come across Islamic Republic of Bangladesh. Bangladesh, where we found Shariat is a base. Islamic Republic of Bangladesh. ఎక్కడైతే మతాధిపతులు ఎక్కడైతే మత గ్రంథాన్ని ఫాలో అవుతారో అలాంటి స్టేట్ని ఏమంటామంటే థియోక్రటిక్ స్టేట్ అంటాం. ఇఫ్ సమ్మన్ ఆస్క్స్ ద క్వశ్చన్, వాట్ ఫ్యాక్టర్స్ ఫోర్స్డ్ D.D. Koshambi to opine Indus society, Indus, what we call say polity was dominated by theocrats or so that is like, say heads of religion అన్నప్పుడు during excavations we found some sort of religious artifacts అంటాం, రైట్? సో థియోక్రటిక్ స్టేట్ దగ్గరకు వచ్చిన లైన్ రాసుకోండి. based on religious artifacts, ఒక చిన్న హైఫన్ తీసుకోండి. the torso of a priest which is on board, torso of a priest, even we have learnt as part of races of the civilization. So this particular torso of a priest belonged to Mongoloid race and Rascom. Torso of a priest, right? It's all about. Next, next another that is like merchant rule. Another theory, merchant rule, Vartakula Palana. Merchant rule, Vartakula Palana. R.S. Sharma. So on what basis R.S. Sharma opines that uh, Indus Valley లేదా Harappans governed by merchants అన్నప్పుడు ఆయన ఏమంటాడంటే Indus people gave a massive importance to economic activities, especially of trade and commerce. Why అన్నప్పుడు because the head of the state happened to be economist or like business people, merchant rule అనేది ఈయన ఒపీనియన్, రైట్? ఒక లైన్ రాసుకోండి. Since Harappans gave much importance, since Harappans gave much importance, since Harappans gave much importance to economic activities, to economic activities, since Harappans gave much importance to economic activities, because the government might have headed by merchants, because the government headed by merchants. Next, the rule of oligarchy. The rule of oligarchy. What is it mean monarchy? Single rule. Monarchy, single rule. Democracy, many people. Now come to oligarchy. Very good. Oligarchy దగ్గర a group of leaders and రాసుకోండి. Group of leaders. If a government runs by a group of leaders, maybe 5 leaders, 6 leaders, not more than that, such kind of government we called as oligarchy. As we got, one of the English archaeologists opined that Indus civilization very vast. It is not possible to rule by single head untrained. So perhaps the civilization might have governed by a group of leaders, oligarchy. And finally, highly centralized administration. Highly centralized administration. A.L. Bhashyam. Highly centralized administration by A.L. Bhashyam. So A.L. Bhashyam దగ్గర ఒక చిన్న లైన్ రాసుకోండి. He was an Australian Indologist. He was an Australian Indologist. And the author of start with inverted commas, and the author of The Wonder That Was India. And the author of The Wonder That Was India. The Wonder That Was India. What is it meant by Indology? Indologist, history, historian, archaeology, archaeologist, mathematics, mathematician, including online students. Indology का मतलब क्या होता है? चलो, Indology in the sense, a foreigner who studies Indian history, he or she be called as Indologist. Indology, the science which deals with Indian history, Indian heritage, Indian culture. In simple history, the science which deals with Indian history. A foreigner who studies Indology, he or she be called as Indologist. If someone asks a question, can't we style ourselves as Indologist? కింది నుంచి పైన చూస్తారన్నమాట. No, we can't style ourselves, we can't proclaim ourselves as Indologists. Then, if a foreigner who studies Indian history, Indian culture, he or she be called as Indologist. Assume in a given situation, if we study Chinese history, Sinology. If you study Chinese history by going over there, you'll be given the tag called Sinologist. Every country has its own branch, which invites foreigners to study. If you go to Egypt, they have Egyptology, right? చలో ఇట్స్ ఆల్ అబౌట్. మళ్ళీ ఈయన ఏమంటాడంటే సెంట్రలైజ్ అడ్మినిస్ట్రేషన్ అంటాడు. ఏ విధంగా సెంట్రలైజ్ అడ్మినిస్ట్రేషన్ అంటే ఎయిల్ భాష్యం అండ్ ఆస్ట్రేలియన్ వాట్ వీ కాల్ సే ఇండాలజిస్ట్ ప్రొఫెసర్ ఇన్ హిస్టరీ కాన్బెరా యూనివర్సిటీ ఆస్ట్రేలియా, ఆయన ఏమంటాడంటే ఇఫ్ యూ అనలైజ్ ఇండస్ వ్యాలీ సివిలైజేషన్ you come across there are so many unique patterns అంటాడు. For example, take an example of town planning, keeping as exceptions. Out of 1400 plus sites, ఒక half a dozen sites లో exceptions ఉండొచ్చు. Unique pattern, town planning, unique pattern, followed by even like say we have brick ratio, unique pattern. మనం ఇందాక రెఫర్ చేసాం 4:2:1. Followed by we have what we call say weights and measures, తూనికలు మరియు కొలతలు అంటాం. Even in the pattern called that is like the religious aspects, everywhere you come across unique pattern, same pattern. ఎప్పుడు సాధ్యం అవుతుంది అన్నప్పుడు when at the top single most government, when you have provincial government, when you have so many provincial governments, it is not possible. In some like take an example of Harappa, different towns, Mohenjo-daro different towns, Kalibangan different pattern. How throughout civilization same pattern? Because at the top someone is there, or someone ఏమంటున్నామంటే centralized administration. ఒక లైన్ రాసుకో. He opined that throughout the civilization, the presence of uniformity, throughout the civilization, the presence of uniformity, because the civilization might have governed, because the civilization might have governed by a single ruler. The civilization might have governed by a single ruler. కొన్ని ఎగ్జాంపుల్స్ రాసుకోండి. టౌన్ ప్లానింగ్, brick ratio, one more example, brick ratio, one more example, agricultural practices, one more example, weights and measures, etc. Right, it's all about. Next, have something that is religious conditions. Mata paristhitulu antam. Religious conditions. So as far as religious conditions are concerned, we'll have a pause. In the next class, we'll continue. Right? So including online students, do attend the class with prior preparation. Once we're done with religious conditions of Indus Valley Civilization, I'll be going to take up factors for the decline of civilization. And once we're done with one of the famous topics of art and culture, that is Indus art. Right? And once we're done with Indus art, we're going to start the new chapter, that is Vedic civilization. क्या था क्वेश्चन? ओके, यस, No, it's a good question. One of our friends, she asked the question, are we reading, especially of Mahabharata and Ramayana, right? Are we reading Mahabharata and Ramayana, like the respective text or sacred text of Hindus, originally written by scholars, are we reading our compiled versions? We have both compiled versions and original written verses. For example, to make you understand, which I'll be going to speak as part of Vedic literature under the tag called Shruti literature and Smriti literature. We have two itihasas in Sanskrit language when it comes to three itihasas in Tamil language. Two itihasas in Sanskrit language, that is Ramayana and Mahabharata. Ramayana, as you know, it was composed by Valmiki, right? When Valmiki composed Ramayana, it has got 12,000 hymns. 12,000 hymns, shlokas, words. When Mahabharata composed by Veda Vyas, it has got only 8,800 hymns. Be it Ramayana and be it Mahabharata, both put into script. They were written in the form of writing, right? They were put into script in 11th century AD. When Ramayana and Mahabharata put into script in 11th century AD, in 11th century AD, Ramayana consisted of 24,000 verses, and Mahabharata consisted of 1 lakh verses. उसका मतलब क्या होता है? Additions were made. 11th century AD, that's it. उसके बाद additions कुछ नहीं करे. Now today we read compiled versions of Ramayana and Mahabharata, not disturbing the actual content, which I'll be going to speak as part of Vedic literature. Chalo, good question. Chalo, we'll have a pause. We'll carry the next class.